This clip is brought to you by SaveWithConrad.com.
Let's mention very briefly what we're doing here. As a reminder, this is May 31st. When the show we just saw here from Atlanta. Later that night, they're in Florence, South Carolina, and it's Bobby and Dennis against Manny Fernandez and Ron Garvin. The next day, double shot, one in Charleston, South Carolina, and one at the Greensboro, North Carolina Coliseum. The James boys are going to take on Bobby and Dennis in a lights out bunkhouse match. We've also got Flair teaming up with Tully to take on Ricky and Robert. So pretty cool matchups. The next day on June 2nd, we're running Cumberland County Memorial Arena. Flair and Arn are going to take on Ricky and Robert. Then we do a TV taping on June 3rd in Spartanburg, and they have a dark match there, which has Ricky and Robert against Flair and Arn. But, it's a TV taping, so you get matches like Wahoo and Thunderfoot. Raleigh, North Carolina is where you guys were on the 4th. You also had a show in Charleston, South Carolina on the 4th. So this is not a matinee situation, two totally separate cards. On one hand, you've got Dusty, Ricky, and Robert taking on Rick, Arn, and Tully in an elimination match, similar to the way that we saw Ricky get his nose broken. But the other main event in Charleston, this is interesting. One of the first times we've seen it here, Magnum versus Nikita. And it's at the Arthur Ravenel Stadium in Charleston, South Carolina. Central States would have a show where Ric Flair would come in to wrestle Sergeant Slaughter on the 5th. You guys were running Columbus, Georgia at the time. Norfolk Scope would be where everybody would be on the 6th. And the main event there is the James boys defeating the Midnight Express in a non-title bunkhouse match. And then, of course, we're back doing TV on the 7th. Next week, what you've got coming up here on the show that we'll be breaking down are Ricky and Robert in action, Mandy Fernandez in action, Arn and Tully in action against George South and Randy Mulkey. So that should be fun. Nikita Koloff will be taking on Todd Champion. Shaska will be teaming with Barbarian. Wahoo McDaniel in action. An easy affair for the Midnight Express. And Ron Garvin will close the show. But it's interesting because even though that show was filmed on the 7th, there was a very special Sunday edition on the 8th. Do you recall off the top of your head why that would have been?
No.
Of course, we know that we're building towards the big Omni show, which is June the 8th. And the main event of the Omni, again, what we've sort of been seeing, Rick and Tully against Ricky and Robert, this time a Texas Tornado match. And we would see Dusty and Magnum taking on Bobby and Dennis in a non-title bunkhouse match. Some of our younger listeners are probably not familiar. Chat me up. Can you describe a bunkhouse match?
Yeah, it's I think we tried to have one in AEW a number of weeks ago, maybe last year. But it's the old word was, and Nelson Royal would talk about this, and this was one of Dusty's favorites. It's come as you are. It's how guys who worked cowboys, when they worked, they all lived in this bunkhouse. And when they got in a fight, they would use whatever it is, come as you are, boots, tape fists, dressed up like cowboys, and a no-holds-barred fight. So basically a bunkhouse match, you would see a lot of guys in jeans and boots and T-shirts and bandanas and hats and using bull ropes and using whatever it takes to win a match. And it's kind of like come as you are, but in reality, dress as a cowboy. And so we've had plenty of those throughout the years. I always liked Bunkhouse's matches.
Well, why did Dusty like the bunkhouse match?
Because Dusty, you liked anything cowboy related. I mean, that was him. That was him. Cody tells me the story that when he was a young kid and he was in Texas with Dusty, that Dusty wanted to go to a quarter horse museum.
Really?
Yeah. And Cody said, I don't want to go there. I don't want to see a quarter horse museum. But that's one of the things that Dusty were into. He was into, he's a Texas guy. He was into all things cowboy. So that's why I like the bunkhouse match. And thus the bunkhouse stampede, right?
Right.
So
you like the bunkhouse stampede as a concept?
Yeah, it was okay.
It was a big pause there. Not so sure.
Not so sure. Not so sure. I like title matches.
Yeah.
That's what I like. I don't. I'm not gonna call them gimmicks because, well, maybe it is a gimmick match, but
Well, of course, the Bunkhouse Stampede's a gimmick match.
yeah, I mean, I never did like bull rope matches or Russian chain matches or Indian strap matches. I'm sorry, Native American strap matches.
Oh
Or
God, will you stop with that?
okay, or I never did like. I never have really cared for battle royals that much, or royales, if you want to call it that.
Did they
I
have
just
cheese on them?
what's that?
Did they have cheese on them?
Right.
No, I'm asking. The
Yeah,
Royales, did they have
royales.
cheese on 'em?
Right. Right.
No? Okay.
No, I know what you're getting at. Okay. This is not Pulp Fiction.
Oh, you know fucking everything, don't you?
Yeah. So anyway, well, you're really trying to get me, aren't you? You're trying to get me
Yes.
going.
Yes. Yes.
Anyway, so I've always liked just one-on-one title matches, like Ric Flair, Dusty Rhodes back then, or Kenny Omega, John Moxley, or even tag team at world, title. That's the matches. Those are the matches I like, because back then, as a fan, when you saw a world title change hands, if you went to the arena and saw it, you were part of something special.
Right.
And we went to the arena shows, went to a lot of them, went to the arena shows back then for two things: want to see a title switch, want to see blood, because you never saw a title switch on TV, at least back in those days you didn't, and you never saw blood unless you went to the arenas. So those were like the things, the brass rings, the things you wanted to go see. But of course, as the world has changed, so has pro wrestling.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And go save yourself some money right now. If you're in a 30-year loan or you have credit card debt, it's not a matter of if I can save you money. It's a matter of how much. Find out right now for free at SaveWithConrad.com.